you probably noticed from the previous interviews, we go a little bit chronological in terms of, when you were, for me, I kind of think of like with this little thing we got going on of like, when was your first recollection of being aware of music, into music? Or was there some event where like, there was some party at the house or something happened where you're like, you kind of stood up and noticed, it's like, oh, well, people are really into this and I should get into this, or was it just a general thing that happened as you were growing up, there was music in your house?
I wouldn't say there was a lot of music in the house. Mike, I don't know if you've seen other interviews, but both Tim and Jock suggested there was a bunch of music in their houses. I don't remember there being a ton of music aside from what we picked up from our siblings. I remember mom and dad having crazy 60s, swinging 60s records lying around. I don't know if they were Bacharach or Henry Mancini or what they were, but I remember seeing those. And then as time went on, our older sister, who had 6 years on us, which Mike knows, but you guys don't know, she had 6 years on us, so she was more advanced in her musical upbringing than we were. So, and that's the most I remember of when you were younger.
You know what I'd say, Brad, because it's interesting the way you asked the question, in your house. And I do remember there being music in the house, more so to JT's point about from our sister and brother to some extent, but more from our sister. But the music was not in the house, from my memory. It was actually from our cottage.
Yeah.
So we would spend hours at the cottage, and the configuration of the cottage was such that the kids had the smaller cottage, and the parents had another one. So when Ginny got the new stereo, the new turntable,
which
was it was gold because she had all the discs, and we had the stereo in the cottage. So we would listen to her albums for hours every day, every night. So Springsteen, Alan Parsons, Al Stewart, Billy Joel, Chicago, all that 70s era.
I'm going to interrupt.
We were fully embedded in that from the cottage. I think less so from the house. So I agree with JT. We didn't get it from our parents. It was from our sister, and it was, I think, mostly from the cottage.
Mike, you forgot a couple of the silver-backed alpha male gorillas. There was this, and there was this.
Right. Meatloaf is a good one. Yeah.
Supertramp. Tons of Supertramp. Elton John, Boston, Styx.
And then Brad as well, with the music piece. JT and I both played drums as kids in public school. So about grade 5, grade 6.
Like sit down drums or like, okay.
And I'm sure our parents paid the price, from the neighborhood watch. I'm sure they got called all the time, but the drums were great for us. Originally, we did classic drums in the sense that we went to a record store and they had the teaching in the back, and they would teach us how to do it formally. And then half a year later, the teacher changed, and the guy we were being taught by said, "Hey, I'm going freelance. Do you want Do you want me to come to your house?" And this guy had the big fro. He looked like Mark Fidridge from the Detroit Tigers, the big fro. And he was a little bit loopy. He was teaching us drums, but he wasn't teaching us from a drum book. He was teaching us by having us play things like Yes and Peter Frampton and Peter Gabriel and all these mainstream and alt bands that were, and Neil Young, like things that there's no way a 9 or 10-year-old would ever play. So that was partially, I think, where we got an interest in music, or I did anyway. Through bands that I had no business listening to. Really
Mike, I was talking to Jen last week, and she said that when she hears Salisbury Hill, she thinks of us playing the drums to Salisbury Hill, which for 10-year-olds back then would have been uncool and unsexy.
I got to tell you, this is fascinating. I've been interviewing you two for 30 years, and I've never heard that you played the drums. Ever.
Same. I had no idea.
I've been in your parents' rec room, the house you grew up in the rec room.
Yeah,
I didn't see a kit down there.
Yeah, there wasn't. We got rid of it when we were in our teens.
Tell me about the demise of the interest in drums. Now, of course, the drummer's always the first person to get kicked out of the band. Is it that?
Or die?
Yeah.
Or die.
Bizarre gardening accident.
We're hoping that being kicked out is the first thing. But when did it come to a screeching halt? What happened?
For Mike, it was probably junior high. For me, I did a bit in high school actually, with the band, which was not the band with Robbie Robertson. This is the school band.
Very
We
fast.
I played with them, but I think the kit was gone at that point.
Yeah.
It unlike the pool table, it couldn't be used as an ironing board. So we ended up getting rid of the kit. It was hauled out of there. And I think it was probably because there was just too much Salisbury Hill going on in the house.
When you moved on your own,
Yeah.
what was it when you either purchased it, discovered it, found it, stole it, however you acquired your first bit of music? Where did it come from, and did you share the same tastes? Was it
Yeah.
similar genres?
For sure.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the for me, the first album that I remember buying, other than like the, you know,
K-Tail.
20 original hits, 20 original stars or whatever, or hot shots. But the first one I remember buying was an Elton John album, and then Bay City
Terrible.
Rollers. Who didn't have a Bay City Rollers album in grade 3? You just did it. And then these guys in grade 4 were it.
Sure.
So that was different than, not the Elton John, but the other was different than Our Sister. So at that point there was a little bit there, but you know, we wouldn't listen to that with our brother or sister. We wouldn't listen to our stuff. It would be their stuff always.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then between the two of us, I think musically we were probably pretty in line. I would say until about the middle of high school, probably.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, the turning point for when we probably went in slightly different directions, but I think still a lot of the same stuff, was when JT got his JV 55
PC
Ghetto Blaster with the tape, the liquid cooled screen, and the tape, the big tape thing, and then he could do tape to tape. So all of a sudden he had the headphones and he had the JV 55, 50 or whatever it was, and he was on his own. So all of a sudden he was going down his path of music, and with the headphones, I'm not part of that anymore. So I started looking at something else. That's how I view it anyway, JT. Yeah. I don't know if you saw the same.
Yeah, that's a neat observation. I definitely remember the PC-55, but I didn't realize that you were being blocked out. I didn't know, that wasn't intentional. And just so you know, guys, we shared a bedroom for years, so that's why we are. That's partly why our musical tastes were subjected to one another. But yeah, I was getting into more Pink Floyd and Zeppelin and things like that. Mike was looking at INXS and U2. But prior to that, he and I rode shotgun on The Who. And you remember the final tour of '82? That was, I think, the third last tour. It came through Toronto, and
They never played again after that.
Sorry?
They never
played again.
Never.
We're done.
It's the last concert.
They loved it so much they came back and did it again. Any event, that one kickstarted a bunch of interest in The Who. So classic until mid high school, classic rock, as it's now known, would have driven a bunch of our tastes. One observation, just to go back to what we were talking about with my sister's record collection. One of the records that we haven't mentioned is Jackson Browne's Running on Empty. That one was in the collection and got a lot of airplay. And about 5 years ago, I was driving with Jean-Michel. He's now 22. We were driving down the street, and the Loadout came on, and he said, "This is a great album." And I said, "Jean-Michel, I think this is my favorite album." And it was one of those epiphanies where it's like, "Hey, he's a real thing. He's grown up. This is awesome."
But, which it's a pretty cool feeling to know that you know your child likes stuff that you like too. Like you share that, and before we go there, because before we go there, because I want to talk about that a little bit. But who, like, where was this influence? Where Mike, you were more into NXS, and then JT, like you kind of went down that Pink Floyd a little bit, like you mentioned those two. What was the trigger for that? Were you hanging out with different people in high school? Like, where did that division kind of originate from?
A bit, I'd say, Mike. I'd say I probably hung out more with the stoner crowd than you did, mid high school, and you were. We both flitted around a fair bit, but I would say Mike associated more with other groups that were probably into more current stuff.
Hey, Brad, you know, as an observation, just to that point, and people talk about high school cliques and groups, you know, the football team or the athletes or or the punk rockers or whatever. And one thing that in thinking about this discussion, one thing that came to mind in our school, I think, there was a divide between those that listened to the hard rock, so the Q107 crew, versus the CFNY crew that were the alternative. And I think that was the divide. And in some cases, it was also based on preppy versus stoner or whatever. But I think it was the actual radio stations that differentiated a lot of what you listen to. And so I started to migrate a little bit, not fully, but migrate a little bit more from Q107 into CFNY, where I think JT stayed rooted in Q107.
That's a great observation.
Toronto radio. That's unfortunate. You don't know Toronto radio.
Well, that is a great observation, because people are not married to the radio anymore. They listen to Spotify or they listen to satellite radio, so they've already decided on their genre, and you know, they aren't going to hear new stuff. If they listen to rock radio on Sirius, then they're in. You know, so there isn't the CFNY influence anymore. So, and Chris, you have a friend who was a DJ at CFNY, did you not?
No, my childhood friend is John Derringer from the Mighty Q.
Oh, okay.
And well, my closer friend, I do know Kim Hughes, who was a longtime Q107 CFNY presenter as well. So my two radio icons there that had played different points in my life, but definitely a neighborhood. And of course, John Derringer, John Hayes, grew up down the street from Mike and John, but older as I am than those two. But I grew up a few doors down from the high school that Mike and John went to, and Lawrence Park Collegiate Institute.
It was an institute.
For disciplinary reasons, I wasn't allowed to go to the local school. I was shuttled downtown to a different school for trouble.
Chris, don't be too forlorn about that. LPCI was built on a garbage dump, according to my mother. Literally, it was a garbage dump in the 1920s.
Well, for all of its garbage dump topography, I do have a question for you too, because the music scene at LPCI had to have been the landscape had to have been a happening scene, because bands like the Bourbon Tabernacle Choir would have come out of your generation. Your classmates would have been certainly would have been in that band. 1 or 2 years older than you.
No, same year.
Chris Miller and
most of them.
And those, so there had to have been an active music scene that revolved around the school. But interesting that, of course, like most high schools in that era, there would have been groups that would have gravitated to one form of music or another. But it's just I'd like to know a little bit more about the scene at that school. Were there kids playing guitar in the hallways? Was there a band? Was there a cool band?
There was an inspiration, a genesis of the Bourbons as well as others. When we were in grade 13, and yes, there was a grade 13. It wasn't disciplinary, but in grade 13, there was a great live performance performed by 4 clever, creative individuals. It was a Kiss lip sync with full makeup and gear, performed by 2 of the people on this call and 2 others. And that kickstarted a lot of people's musical epiphany.
So confused is what
Paul Stanley is joking. Coming from an Ace Frehley perspective right now, I think there were a lot of bands that were playing in high school, and the Bourbons were sort of at the tail end of that. Many of them were from our grade, and Whitey and Chris and Jason were all people that we knew very well. We skied with some of them, and we also knew them in high school.
Socialized with.
It's interesting how they came together, because originally I think they all had great senses of humor, and I think in many cases they enjoyed playing music together, and out of the joy of just being together and having a good time. And the Bourbons, for those that have ever seen the band, originally there must have been about 15 people on stage.
It was like Sly and the Family Stone.
It was, and I mean it felt like they were jugglers and flamethrowers and the whole thing. But then it skinnied down to a band of, I think,
5.
about 7 or 8. A couple of guitars, keyboards, probably 8 guys. And Kate was a couple of years younger, and then the lead singer was from another school, but the rest of them were all from Lawrence Park. And many of those guys had played guitar together or started playing instruments together. Chris Brown was a year younger and probably more accomplished musically, but they came together and formed this melting pot of music
Potpourri.
that after high school really took off and became a good bar band when we were
Yeah.
at university. And it was kind of cool to see that happen because they had some good success, right? As a university and a Toronto pub band.
Happy to tell you that my defense partner in young kids hockey, Chris Plock, played sax in the band.
Ah, there you go. Yeah.
Yeah, it really, what Mike describes is so accurate. When you looked at the stage, you were thinking, who the hell's playing an instrument and who's just dancing?
Who should I be looking at? It was funny, and they were just having a great time up there. It was pretty funny. One thing that you probably saw Chris growing up in Toronto, which came out in sort of grade 11, grade 12, grade 13 for us, Battle of the Bands, right? High school Battle of the Bands, where the different bands would go to the Masonic Temple or some other small venue and duel it out for the championship. And it was, they'd play a couple of songs and you go and see your favorite people and cheer as loud as you could because you wanted to win. But just the atmosphere of all these different schools coming together and watching these different bands play, it was a lot of fun.
You're absolutely right. The genesis of that of the Battle of the Bands really was 1981, the first one I remember, and I am a little bit grayer than all of you guys, so I've got a few years on you. But that's when it really kicked off. You're exactly right. It was at the Masonic Temple, and bands from two specific schools always turned it on. Lawrence Park, of course, always had a good showing.
Northern.
And North Toronto had a band. Friends of mine were in a band called Go Feet, which was a ska band, and they were really good. And those nights at the nights at the Masonic Temple were for high school kids. They were hot and they were sweaty. It was packed, and it was a scene. It was as the punk movement rolled through in the mid to late 70s, and then the 80s saw the new romantic and new wave bands, Martha and the Muffins, and of course the Canadian Spoons, of course. And Paul Humphrey sadly passed away the other day, the frontman for Blue Peter, which was an absolutely terrific Toronto-based band. These are all people who were part of the music scene, but certainly were influenced and pushed by the type of competition that was available then. I don't know of it happening now. I don't think it's possible now. I think that the mummies who dropped Precious off at school in the minivan would lose their shit if their kid was at the Masonic Temple with 400 other kids having a good time. I don't think it happens anymore, and that's the type of environment that's poisoned live music and the impetus to make music.
Jim Cuddy went to North Toronto, I believe.
Yep.
I can't say I ever remember his name when I was in high school. Was he your vintage?
He is 1 year my senior. But I would say that his interest in the Canadian the Toronto music scene. I don't think he was a minstrel of any renown in high school, but he was a super bright guy, and he was a prop master for a movie house. He did all kinds of things, and really his credo was always musically was to make sure you have a day job to pay for your night job. And as a neighbor, I see him around all the time. Not recently, of course, but
can you let him know that he's still on Tara's nightstand? There's a picture of Tara and Jim Cuddy on her nightstand, and
most women have a draw and fascination to him because he's my age is 57, 58, and he looks like he's 25. It's very annoying.
Sings like a 21-year-old.
Yeah, he's definitely aged well. Hey, we were talking a lot about live music. What was your first concert, your first memorable concert, or just first concert in general? Did you guys go together?
I went with Ted Wilby to David Gilmour.
Oh, right on.
And opening for David Gilmour was who? Anyone? Icicle Works.
There you go.
What was the venue?
Whisper to a Scream.
Whisper to a Scream, Massey Hall.
Nice.
Right on.
Which I had heard about it, and when I went into it, I was thinking this just looks like a theater. But then when the band started playing, I was thinking this is a great place to see a show, and it was.
Yeah, Mike.
U2 85 Unforgettable Fire Tour at the Gardens. It was great. It's fantastic.
I wish I had gone to that.
And it's funny. You go to a concert and you expect that they won't sound like they do on the record, and it was remarkable how U2 was able to pull it off. And that's far before recordings and backing tracks. It was great concert.
Who did you go?
Those are both. I mean, terrific first acts to see. I mean, no one's going to be ashamed to list those. But there had to be some music that both of you once loved that absolutely makes you cringe now. And I need to know from each of you.
That's why I'm wearing the shirt, my friend.
I think Kiss needs to exist in a completely different category.
Yeah, I think 100,000 years. 100,000 years doesn't cut it.
You have to have some music somewhere that, although you did kick around, I heard the Bay City Rollers, but that's
That's it.
better than that. I think you have to have something in your something in the holster that you're absolutely ashamed of.
Guys,
know what that is. Mike's
the phrase I use with my kids when I don't want to hear something on the radio is, I don't need to listen to that again. And that's Steve Miller Band. I don't need to hear Steve Miller Band again.
But you did love him at one point.
I didn't love him, but I listened to him a lot.
Yeah.
Had the old Walkman going. Mike?
live without him is
Yeah, I mean, Bay City Rollers would fall right into that. You know, it's funny, what I listen to now, and it's probably come up later, but what I listen to now is largely from the 80s and 90s. And I could listen to that stuff forever. And that is stuff that I've been listening to for a long time. So I struggle with who I'd throw away that I loved at one point. I'm thinking through the question, other than Bay City Rollers, I can't really think of anybody who's fallen off.
That's funny, Mike. If we're at a party situation and Saturday night does come on, SATURDAY night, like
the barn burner.
You are gonna have fun. It's not like you're gonna sit down and listen to the album, but it's still gonna it's actually gonna trigger a happy time, I would think.
Yeah, happy maybe because I married somebody who's Scottish and she gets more excited about it than I do. So
Mike had a brush with the Bay City Rollers, an indirect brush with the Bay City Rollers at his wedding.
Yeah, Julie's got a like cousin 5 times removed whose last name is Longmire, and 2 of the Bay City Rollers are Longmire. They're brothers.
Eric and Eric.
And so I asked Julie's cousin, well, I said to Julie, are you related to the Bay City Rollers? Because I realized the last name.
No.
And she said, no, they're not related. It's just the same name. And so I went up to the guy, and at the time, he was probably 75. And he goes, yeah, we are related to the Bay City Rollers. And he rattled off the whole bio. And I'm thinking, Julie, you've never talked to this guy about it before.
You know what's funny is that you're talking about love of the 80s and the 90s. And I just, I read something or I saw it. Someone said, you know, when we currently talk about the 80s and the 90s, just remember when we were like to our kids, to your kids, when we were kids, that's like our parents talking about the 60s or the 50s. You know, it's like, it would just put it in perspective to me. I'm like, oh, geez, we're old. Like, it's official.
Yeah.
There's also, I can't say I understand the science of it, but from what I understand, there's a physiological reason why you're connected to that music of that era in most people's lives. Most people have a connection to that, whether and other aspects of pop culture as well, TV, books, are the ones you read or listened to or watched in your teens are ones that we're predisposed to actually being attracted to and having, and I think a lot of it is a social thing where you connect it with good times. But from what I understand, it's beyond that, and there's some sort of wiring that is turned on by what you're doing at that age.
I think it makes sense too, because the fact you don't have a job, you don't have a ton of responsibilities, you can actually pay attention to it a little bit more. Like you can get lost into it because you don't have to go to your job, you know, like I think your mind is actually growing still. And you're like, well, I can put this in there and it actually
growing around.
Yeah, exactly.
I want to revisit the PC 55 for a second, if you don't mind, John. So obviously you had a PC 55 and you know as well as I do that this was a high-end boombox that had detachable speakers.
Yeah. Oh yeah, the whole thing was detachable.
Yeah. The amplifier was different from the tape deck. So you had a tape deck. I assume you had a turntable. So that means you were making mixtapes. So I have a question for both of you. When you were making mixtapes, I wanted to know what the first song of side A was when you were making a tape. And when you were making a tape, I want to know who you were making that one for.
I'm making it for Mike Taylor usually.
You got a lot of mixtapes.
And let's be clear, Mike and I were grade A pirates.
Well, of course, everybody was a pirate in the 70s and 80s. But if
I still have his handwriting on tapes.
You've unpacked your new Maxell tape and you've got it in there. What's the first song on side A?
You know what, Chris, I don't know if this would be the one, but the first one that comes to mind is one that I just heard today that I believe is the first song on Darkness on the Edge of Town, Thunder Road.
That's Born to Run.
Born to Run, I'm sorry, Born to Run. Kick, no, anyway, either way, so just Kicked. And I was thinking to myself, when you asked that question, I was thinking, that's a great first song. And that would be one that I would think of to put at the beginning of my first mixtape. But JT, you mixed a lot more tapes than I did, so I'd love to hear what you have to say.
And JT, when you answer this, were you different genres? Like, were you actually making the sexy tape, or were you just making upbeat, or it was just a shit show?
Usually there was a theme,
Yeah.
a motif, if you will. Are you wondering, was there a song that started all of the mixtapes, or are you saying a particular genre? What would I throw on there?
Yeah, I mean, either or. As Brad mentioned, the content is going to be related to what the intent is.
Yeah.
So obviously, if it's going to be for a girl, there's going to be some sort of romantic aspect depending on what your motive behind the tape is. But just off the top of your head, even if it was a gift for, and if it was not beat, I need to know what your go-to, because side A first song is going to set the pace for the entire tape.
Well, there was one that we had that started off with Blinded by the Light, which ties in with Springsteen's comment.
Whose version?
It was the Manfred Mann version.
Very good. Okay.
That one started off the Assorted Cold Cuts mixtape. And Mike knows of another one that was a heavy metal bridge mix tape, and that one started with American Pie.
But the title itself was a misnomer, right?
The second one was more of a lower key thing. The other one was more classic rock.
Another one that comes to mind, and this is the same genre as the first song that I threw out there, is "Bat Out of Hell."
I was grabbing my "Bat Out of Hell" best opening track of an album.
There you go.
So that one for me is another one that just kicks it off pretty nicely and sets the tone. I think the first song, Chris, to your point, the first song has to set the tone.
Critical.
And if it's an upbeat track or an upbeat mix, then you have to have something. And I'm thinking as well, maybe a little Van Halen, maybe some Eruption might get her going.
Can I change this the tone a bit? My thought, I agree with you on "Bat Out of Hell." Great opening track, but a little dated. But if it's more of an 80s upbeat sound, I'm thinking "Age of Consent," New Order. I think that it gets the juices flowing nicely.
This coming from the guy who wasn't supposed to like New Order. New Order was in Mike's oeuvre, not yours.
Well, I had a revelation later in life.
Nice.
Looking back to the stuff on the 80s that I didn't delve into when I was there is kind of fun. There's some stuff in there. Psychedelic Furs. There's some fun stuff in there. Stranglers, the Jam. There's all sorts of nuggets that are worthy of mining. Did you like that metaphor?
I did.
So I think there's all sorts that's out there. But "Bat Out of Hell" people have all forgotten "Bat Out of Hell," but it's in your face. It's the mule kick to the chest that you referred to on an earlier telecast. That's gone viral, by the way.
Hey, moving along in life, did you guys try to influence your children's musical tastes, musical influences? Did you have kind of your program in the house, or was it just a matter of survival and you listen to whatever gets you, whatever pacifies them?
My guys would get stroked if they bought into Dad's program. They come to know, as I said earlier, that there's stuff that Dad doesn't need to hear again. So they know to turn that off if it shows up on the radio. But I've been fortunate, all three of my kids like old stuff. And I cherish that. But and when they do stroke Dad, kudos to them. It's brilliant. They stay in the will. It's perfect. But
that being said, JT, do you get anything from them? Like listening to their tunes, you're like, this isn't so bad.
Well, not often. I share an Apple account with two of my kids, and so I'm able to see what they download. The irony to all this is what they're downloading is one of them, Aretha Franklin, Sam Cooke, uh, Otis Redding. It's crazy what Ben is downloading on the phone. Katrina, she's downloading a bunch of rap that is not my thing. So I tend to stay away from it, but I do nudge them a fair bit. Play something you think I might like, and often they'll go back to our era, and that's easy for them. They know what will turn Dad on. But I do nudge them to teach me, because I have no exposure to new music. I don't listen to commercial radio, and the satellite radio that I have, I tend not to go to stations where I'm going to hear the N-word. So it's once again, it becomes incestuous. But they've nudged me in certain directions. And I mentioned Sam Cooke. Mike's heard the story already. Sam Cooke, I didn't know who Sam Cooke was a year ago. Like, I could have, but I didn't. And I was playing darts with Ben, and I said, "What do you want to play?" He said, "How about some Sam Cooke?" And this guy was around in the 50s and 60s. And Ben's 20 years old. So he's nudging me to listen to stuff that I should have known a long time ago. And I love it. But that's the only time where they've really sort of nudged me in a direction that was their direction, and yet it's not new stuff. I wish I did know more new stuff.
Yeah. And before we get to Mike, Chris brought this up when we were talking about the questions. Did the move out west change or alter what you liked and what you're into, or was there a major influence moving out west, first Vancouver and then Calgary, that you changed courses a little bit?
Well, the geography didn't change things, but when you have kids, it does. You don't listen to as much music, and as Mike was alluding to, you kind of cocoon. You don't seek out stuff you're comforted in, stuff you know. So the only thing that jumped out at me when you said that was "Baby Beluga" by Raffi. Is what I remember soon after moving to the West, because that's when we started having kids.
But what about the country influence of Calgary?
Well, there is that, but I can't say I bought into it. I have to say I did listen to a lot more Blue Rodeo when I came out here, but that had more to do with the kid's mom, and that's what she would listen to. So I found ways to like that. But the municipality hasn't changed my musical tastes, I wouldn't say.
Yeah, Mike?
I find it interesting how kids listen to music now, in the sense of, I mean, I talked about JT wearing headphones. Kids don't listen to music in the rec room I don't think, with the stereo pounding. They have headphones on, or they're in their room with a small speaker on their own. Generally, I'm talking from my experience, but I expect it's common. So I don't have a good sense of who the different bands are, who they're listening to. Our middle guy will flip the station to 99.9, which is top 40 music now. So I listen to that, and I actually try to listen to that. I won't turn it away if he's turned it on, because I actually want to know what's out there, because I just don't know, and I'd love to know more. So there's been a little bit of that from him. But yeah, if you were to say to my daughter, or if you were to ask me what my daughter's listening to right now, I don't know, because I just don't hear what she's listening to, because it's in her headset. And then with regards to pushing them towards my music, I'll play the music that I've got, or a station that I've got, so they know a lot of what I know, and they seem to not embrace it, but I think they either put up with it friendly in a nice way, or they do like it to a point. One of the things that I really enjoyed was when Sam was taking a course in music, and the teacher was having them do the history, Black History Month, and they do a Black artist or top guitarist of all time. And the top guitarist of all time played when we were kids. So it's kind of cool, because he's learning about guys that we would listen to. So that was cool for me, because he had, who did he have? Jimi Hendrix. And he also did Whitney Houston, right? So it's kind of cool to see that through his eyes, or have him ask about whoever. And it also gives me a chance to look up Whitney Houston and Bobby Brown's My Prerogative, which takes me back to the glory days of Queens.
The deep bag grab I'm going for is something that's going to be a bit of a collective. So the four of us spent time together between the years of 88 and 90, say, roughly. And I'd like to know from Mike and John's perspective if there was a band or a song that connected you to that time and place. Obviously, we were all together in Kingston, and I mean, I can roughly guess what a band would be that was a bit of a connecting piece of the puzzle, but is there music that that you connect to the soundtrack of our time there?
Fire away, Mike.
You actually built it into your question because you used the term time and place. Fourth year university, go over to our buddy Doug Perry's place and say, hey, what are you up to? And all the guys are just hanging out. And Doug said, well, I'm actually heading off to see a concert at Nebandergan, the non-alcoholic pub there. It's Andrew Cash, and he's going to be playing. And I said, who's Andrew Cash? I don't know who this is. And he goes, come on, you'll enjoy it.
Nice.
And it was one of those nights when you don't plan anything and everything happens in the sense of, wow, this guy's great. And the backup singer, of course, was Andy Mays, who ended up with Skydiggers. And then Skydiggers started to take off. And it was one of those evenings where you think, wow, I could have just hung out and had a beer with the rest of the guys, or I could have gone to the concert with Doug. And it was sliding doors and went to the concert. And looking back, I became a big Andrew Cash fan and Skydiggers after that. Not manic, but not crazy about it. But it was a time and place that was just perfect for music. And when I was thinking about this discussion and the question you just asked, the first thing I thought of was that night with Andrew Cash. So thank you for letting me remember that with you.
I completely agree. And the word you're looking for is serendipitous, Mike. It was serendipitous. And you turned me on to Andrew Cash, who I subsequently saw at Kokomo, I think. When I went to
Climby's favorite place.
Gonna say, you must have seen Climby there.
And he did a great cover of Gordon Lightfoot's Sundown. He rocked it out. Anyway, so the other one I'd think about in those terms would be Beautiful South and House Martins.
Okay.
Oh, really?
Love Beautiful South. It's
Oh,
great.
amazing! Right on. Yeah, because I had my moment with Beautiful South, so that's cool. Because I don't know too many people. Like I know people are into House Martins, but Beautiful South is lost on a lot of people.
I'm pulling the age card out of this one. So Andrew Cash's first band organization was L'Étranger, which is a huge part of my high school scene, that bar scene, if you could squeeze it in, and concerts too. And another little tip, his brother Pete also was and continues to be, I think, a member of the Skydiggers in various formations. So it's a very, very tight-knit group of musicians that seem to be a big part of both of your experiences.
And they've reformed as the Cash Brothers, at least on Apple Music. There's not a whole lot of Andrew Cash on Apple, but the stuff that's there is usually the two brothers.
Oh, Mike and I were at the Horseshoe for a show.
It's not a Cash Brothers. Yeah.
Okay.
Cash Brothers together 10 years ago, maybe more.
10. Oh, it was
15,
it
20.
was a fat 10 years ago.
Yikes.
It was over 20, I think. I must say I was impressed by Peter Cash's jacket. He had the suede jacket with the tassels hanging down. It was very country. I remember that.
That's a sweater.
Literally, as I was sweating in the Horseshoe, he was wearing a suede jacket. It was
How many T-shirts did you have on, Mike?
Hey,
like,
question: cover songs, yes or no? Mike Taylor.
absolutely.
Yeah.
And I know you've asked this question before, and I'm a big fan of covers, but I do think you need to do something to it. I think just replicating doesn't do it. And so I'm a big fan.
Got any favorites off the top of your head? Favorites?
One that comes to mind, which some people will say is sacrilege. I love Roxy Music's "Jealous Guy," and I also love. I think Roxy Music is a band that does covers well. I think
Like a Hurricane
was great. Yeah, Like a Hurricane. Maybe it's because they're good musicians, or maybe they're just good at imitating other people. But I like what they do with songs. Man for Man, I think, is a much improved song over the Springsteen one. Blinded by the Light. I'm not a big fan of the original, so. And then Hendrix with
Watchtower.
Watchtower.
Mhm.
Big one. But yeah, I'm a big fan of covers if they're done for the right reasons.
They add something to it. JT?
Yeah, I like them a lot for the same reason, and I think it's fun to see guys or women who are fans of the original composer pick it up and go, "This is awesome." There's a Sheryl Crow thing that if you Google it, where she does a cover of George Harrison's "Beware of Darkness." It's on the Google, and it was just recorded for a pandemic message. Which is fabulous. And it's evident that, well, she says, this is my favorite George Harrison song. And there are a handful of others I wrote out that there's a killer Case of You, Joni Mitchell version that Prince does. He had been doing it for years, I guess, just to warm up. He plays all the instruments and he sings falsetto, and he's brilliant. It's fun to see this guy who he knows talent, and when he sees it and kicks it out. And similarly, Nothing Compares to You, the Sinead O'Connor one, I think is brilliant. Katie Lang does a full CD of Canadian covers, most of which are brilliant. She's such a good singer that she pulls it off beautifully. But if you have the composers out there who are great, Jackson Browne, Neil Young, Joni Mitchell, I'm not a big fan of their voices, frankly. And hearing other people perform them, I think is well worth it.
I think Lovers in a Dangerous Time, what the Naked Ladies did, was
brilliant.
such a better version than the original. The original's great, Bruce Cockburn, but just great cover, and I think it launched their career because of what they did.
It most certainly did.
With video and music too, and we didn't talk about video.
Oh yeah, it's sweet.
I love to chat about video because I think in our era anyway, I think in many cases video enhanced the music experience and brought to life some songs that people wouldn't have known what they were had there not been a visual cue for some of the things like Bob Cajun and Johnny Cash is Hurt. Fabulous song on its own, but with that video, for me, it's the best video of all time. And I love the song even more because of the video, even though the song's great. So, I mean, I think in Sinead O'Connor as well, great video for a song that is a good song, but when you see the video, you go, wow, that's pretty.
No, I wonder the flip side of that though is, I wonder how many times you saw a video and you go, oh, I don't like the song anymore because I actually don't like the video, or I got a vibe off these people. I'm like, oh, it's just not my thing now, So I think that's kind of rare because they're crafted pretty wisely. But that being said, I'm sure there was a few, but I do remember in high school and in university, we had Much Music on. It was just on, like that was our radio most of the time. The TV was on to Much Music, and yeah, it was definitely we got introduced to stuff actually, it was new stuff. It wasn't just pop, so but I remember like, In Excess came on and we played the air drums to that one video, but like, I mean, it definitely added to the song experience, Yeah,
and that Never Tear Us Apart, Mike, I think is up there with greatest video of all time. That one brings color to an already good song, but where's the band in Prague? But on the cover side of things, what I alluded to earlier about the artists getting a kick out of the tunes, it also is a way to showcase them with tunes you might already know or not know. George Michael does Papa Was a Rolling Stone, and he crushes it. He's so good. He's so good vocally that he makes it sexy and fun. It's not just a bunch of barbershop quartet vocalists. There's no mama, but it's outstanding. And he does an Elton John cover of Idol, which is from the late 70s as well. And you can hear the admiration in his voice, and it's fun.
Yeah.
So I do like covers too. In case you didn't figure that out.
Chris, I was going to go to some quicker questions, unless you have something like deeper you wanted to cover that I missed.
Oh, no, I have one.
I had one. I had one more before we move to the lightning round, and you will be scored accordingly. Times like these have afforded me a combination of a little more time on my hands and a lot more insomnia. Has given me an opportunity to do a little more deep listening, headphones on type of stuff. And while that may not be the case of, at least for Mike with slightly younger kids running around the house, but if you have the opportunity, I want to know what you're listening to when you take the time to concentrate on the music, go dark, and just hone in on one record. I'd like to know what that is from each of you.
Go ahead, Mike.
I'm trying to unpack all of that. Are you asking me what my favorite record is?
No, I want to know, because it might not be your favorite one that you listen to when you.
Oh, with headphones? Is that what you're saying? Favorite?
Absolutely, the going dark with headphones.
Oh, okay.
You actually get time.
You know what? If you've got headphones, then I think it has to be Pink Floyd.
Mhm.
And if it's Pink Floyd, I mean, it could be any of them, but I wish you were here. I think that the four notes at the beginning is someone wiser than me once said, the four most powerful notes in music, something along those lines.
I think it was, what four notes mean more?
Okay.
Are there four notes that mean more than that? I think is what the person said. I was near you when you heard that quote. But that was my pick. Wish you were here.
Yeah.
Which is standing. And the other one I would launch into, because I walk a lot with headphones on in the neighborhood just to stretch my legs. There's a live version of, well, it's a Van Morrison live record, Too Late to Stop Now, which is killer, which I would recommend because it covers just about everything. And he's got horns, he's got violins, he's got doo-wop singers, and it's fabulous. So I recommend that one.
That's a much better Van Morrison experience than I've had a few times.
Oh, have you seen him live? Because I think we might have been to the same show.
Van Morrison 3 times, and 2 he barely made an effort at all. So
yeah,
let's just
that
say
was my experience.
I won't go down in history as claiming Van Morrison to be one of the great live acts of all time. So
yeah, I didn't see it live, but I have heard it live.
Gotcha.
All right. So quicker questions, no limits. If you could see a band or a singer in their prime, obviously dead or alive, who would you like to time travel, or present day? Who would you love to see?
It wouldn't be dead or alive. It wouldn't be dead or alive, first of all, if that's what you're asking.
Damn, I wanted to get that in the mix.
JT, what have you got?
It's got to be the Mighty Zeppelin.
Oh, yeah.
That would be, that's a camel toe just staring in the face that you can't miss.
Well, and okay, bonus question then. Where would you like to see Led Zeppelin if you could, anywhere? Where would be the perfect venue?
Well, probably in the UK.
Yeah.
Where it's nice and humid and Robert's curls are as curly as possible. But I don't know venues in the UK.
Yeah.
I don't know. Hammersmith, how's that?
Okay, there you go. Michael?
I mean, Zeppelin's got to be up there for me, because they would be one of my top 3 probably bands ever. And I think Robert playing in concert would be hysterical. I just, it would be a lot. I've never, in their prime, I think, well, I think I saw U2 in their prime, so I thoroughly enjoyed U2. I'm thinking something like from a Dirty Stones era. So as they're warming up for their tour at the El Macombo, would be kind of fun to see them, because I think they'd be having a lot of fun and smoking a lot of cigarettes and probably having some fun with the crowd too. So I'm thinking maybe the Stones in the early to mid 70s warming up in the El Macombo. Let me put it that way. Let's say that.
So buddy mine saw
Chris, does that go with you, Chris? I'm sure you have some ideas on the El Macombo.
The new El Macombo can suck it. And the douchebag who owns it. Oh, I have a question for Mike. Okay, we're still in the lightning round. I can expand on my thoughts about the El Macombo for everybody if you want. But anyway, okay, Mike, road trip.
Let's do it. I'm in.
Okay, you're in the car. You can only take one tape. What is it?
What, like one band, one album, not a mixed.
One band, one album, one tape, one trip. It's all you get.
this is a good one. I hadn't thought of this one. I'm thinking Led Zeppelin, Song Remains the Same.
Oh, a double album. We're playing double albums.
Tapes.
That's what I'm going with. And if can I indulge you on something that reminds me of Song Remains?
This is the time.
So in the deli, picking up some food with Hope, our daughter, who's 17. The guy behind the counter is probably 18, 19. And music is playing. And it's like Pink Floyd or something. It's something heavy. And he's maybe 18, 19. So I say to Hope, pretty heavy music for the deli. I mean, come on. So he hears me and he goes, "Oh, do you know who this is?" I said, "Yes, I know who this is." And he says, "So you like Pink Floyd?" I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, have you ever heard Dark Side of the Moon?" "Yes, I've heard Dark Side of the Moon." He goes, "Well, what's your favorite Pink Floyd song?" And we would talk about music for a couple of minutes. And he goes, "Have you ever heard of Led Zeppelin?" "Yes, I've heard of Led Zeppelin." He goes, "Well, what's your favorite song?" So I said, "Probably the Song Remains the Same."
Lemon Song.
So as he's basically handing me the food, I said Song Remains the Same. By the time I got to the cash register, which was all of 30 feet away, I hear the guitar from Song Remains the Same. He's changed the music for me to play it. And I look over and he goes, "That's for you, buddy."
The deli kid is rocking it.
Oh my God.
He's the community DJ. So he put on Song Remains the Same. So love the album, love the song, and live, fantastic. So
That's
there you
great.
go.
Yeah.
So on the road trip album, I'm going to go between, and I must sound like Mike Taylor, savant Mike Taylor, either Born to Run or Unforgettable Fire. But Mike's story just reminded me of something that you might find near and dear to your hearts. The sports bar in Queens many years ago, on Brock, I think it was a little hole in the wall. Anyway,
Yeah, I
I was there
remember.
one night, and
I
there was
saw
a guy
Tyson
who,
fight there.
Yeah, Bone Crusher
Oh.
Smith. That was anyway, sorry.
Anyway, is his ear okay? So there's a guy there who he would have been old, like our age now, and Hotel California was playing, and I walked in there and I don't remember what I said to set him off, but he said, "You probably don't even know who wrote this song." And I said, "Well, Fry, Henley, and Felder." And he's like, "You probably don't even know what this song is about." And so I gave him my rant about, well, it's an allegory for California, and anyway, so I gave him my explanation, and he's like, "Yeah, okay, well, fuck you," or whatever he said.
Can I borrow
And
$5?
it was one of those ones where, so where's the ice cream man playing my anyway, it was one of those ones where I was confronted over some classic rock, and I thought, you know what, we can dance if you want. Anyway, I digress. No ice cream for me.
Hey, what's JT? What's the song that you like that your spouse does not like, and vice versa?
Well, I'm gonna delve back into the Zeppelin pool, and there's a gem called Achilles' Last Stand that is a full auditory assault. I think Mike is aware of the song. I don't know if you guys do. It's on Presence, and it's the first tune on the record, and it just kicks your teeth in. It's over the top, and while we haven't discussed that song much, Led Zeppelin is usually not a big hit around this house or other houses that I've been part of. And my experience with Led Zeppelin is you need to screen people to say, do you like Led Zeppelin, or can you listen to them or not? And if they can't, then you just don't even go there. But I've gone there before, and it's not a big hit. But I after a bunch of videos of Led Zeppelin, apparently Achilles' Last Stand is not the worst thing in the world. We've got a kick out of the camel toe that we've seen on video. That's the best
And
I
vice
have.
versa. What does she put on that you're like, I gotta walk out of the room?
There's not a lot that Tara has that makes me walk out of the room. I'm usually the one who takes over the radio. So
Mike Taylor.
there's nothing.
There's can't think of the band. it's there's a song that Julie plays whenever her friends are over.
Saturday night. Saturday night.
So let me think about that one. But what she doesn't like, I don't think she likes da, which is shocking to me, and
That
it's-
changes everything.
it's concerning. It is concerning. We're right on the edge.
Oh my God.
And the song that Julie likes is you ask. I can't think of the name of it. The one
No
where the
worries.
guy he goes over to the UK and has too good a time and comes back and he can't deal with life because he's so hungover. I'll think of it. Sorry.
That's all right.
not
JT
gonna
wins this round. That's okay.
I'm going to throw the story
Yeah,
at you.
it's-
It's
it's-
kind of
it's
like this.
speed round,
it's talking
JT.
about kids.
It's a speed round.
You're right. I won't bring it up. After we'll talk about the Brad, because I have a funny story. Carry on.
Either you guys ever get roped into karaoke?
No. Oh,
Okay.
no.
No.
I was almost roped into karaoke and I just realized I did not do it. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I had too much karaoke in Taiwan. It
Yes.
never ended well. But you know, I was so full of alcohol. I didn't really know how bad I was. So
Does tapping on the steering wheel and singing to stuff that I like to sing to count as karaoke or not?
not at all. Karaoke is full embarrassment. Yeah,
All right.
it's a stage. It's all that stuff.
I'm hoping when
Uh,
you're driving, you're sober. So John and Mike, I want you to listen to the complete question before you buzz in. One question's for Mike, one question's for John. Similar question, different twist. John Taylor, name the one song that you most closely associate with celebrated environmentalist Tim Favre.
Well, the holiday rap, I would say, which was an adaptation of the Madonna rap tune that was, it was Madonna's tune "Holiday" was chopped up and turned into a rap in the early '80s, and a mutual friend of ours, John Craig, added lyrics to it that was particularly familiar or relevant to Mike and some friends of his and me. That's what I associate with Tim Favre.
Nice. We'll give you 5 points for that. Mike Taylor,
Yes.
I need to know the song that you most closely associate with CFL star and celebrated broadcaster Jock Climie.
There's a lot that I think of when I think of Jock Climie. But when I think of music and Jock Climie, I think of Jock Climie as the lead singer for the air band Village People. So I would have to say YMCA by Jock Climie. They're one and the same, and Brad and I were in the same air band together. Jock was the man as the lead singer. That's my answer.
Nice.
That's funny because I thought Tim was the lead singer. That's how out of sync I was.
No,
I thought it was Brad Long.
the policeman was the lead singer.
Yes. Was his name?
That's awesome.
The Aboriginal gentleman, Tim Favre.
You've both been awarded 5
It
points.
was not your construction man or my cowboy. Sorry. Yeah.
Hey,
Who wins
we're
that?
wrapping up with that.
Who wins that one?
Yeah.
What a
Thank you.
surprise. It's a tie.
Okay, boys. And you have to agree on this one. We are going to make the Mike and John Taylor mixtape. What
Just one tape.
genre?
Just one tape.
You do not get individual tapes. We don't have that time on our hands. So we're busy.
So we have to get along.
You have to get along. Is it
Fraternal.
upbeat? Is it road trip? Is it a sexy tape? Because we've covered so much of that. What are you guys thinking?
Well, I thought about this before arriving on the show, and it seems to me there's all sorts of stuff in the '80s that Mike and I would like mind, either something we haven't heard before or something we haven't heard in 30 years that we get a kick out of, some of which we touched on today. And I'd like you guys to mine a decade of gems that you don't think we've come across before. And the '80s seems like the best one for that.
Challenge accepted.
No, I like this a lot. This is a
Really?
new challenge for sure. Well, that was a lot of fun with the Taylor boys. It was good to talk almost all '80s with them, and I'm glad that they gave us the parameters of making an '80s list because that's pretty easy for us.
and I definitely associate the 80s with the Taylor boys. So Chris and I are going to have at it, and here you go. So sit back and enjoy. Okay, here we go. We have our picks after the Taylor experience, and contrary, John said, he said, and I think Mike even said, he said, I like to start things off like a big tune, and I'm the opposite. When I have a mixtape, I don't like to hit you over the head with the very first tune, but I don't know, I like a little bit of a build, and so my first choice was "Solace of You" by Living Colour, who
Okay.
find their way on many of my mixtapes just because they are a band that's, you can't pigeonhole. They're funk,
Mhm.
they're metal, they're hard rock. There's a little bit of like a little dancey aspect to them. And then, I think I told you last night where I texted you, and I went down the rabbit hole of Living Colour, like, looking up their live concerts at CBGB's, and it was like they were the house band for a little while, and I love, there was a quote, I think from a guy in the band. He says, when an A&R guy says, "We don't know how to classify you guys,
Yeah.
we got the wrong fucking record company." It's like, they don't know what to do with us. They aren't going to promote us. They don't have a clue. And just running. So like they opened for so many groups. They
Oh, yeah.
opened for the Stones. They
Sure.
and as you texted back, Vernon Reid,
Oh.
what a guitar player,
Yeah. I mean, just magic. And I think that I think the Living Colour deserved a whole lot more than they got. And I think maybe they had their toe in so many musical pools that it was difficult to move forward with placing them or putting them in, but just an all-out ballsy rock, funk, punk band. They were all over the map, but they're just joyous, absolutely joyous.
Yeah, absolutely. So anyway, that's the way I'm starting off my tape.
Okay.
Where are you going?
Well, I went in a slightly different direction. I went with Eddie Cochran, "Summertime Blues," more of a reference to the Taylor brothers, listening to the Who, I guess, because the Who, of course, covered "Summertime Blues" so well. But Eddie Cochran is joyous and youthful, and it's the hope of rock and roll at the time, and it's a song that I've always loved a lot. Love the guitar work on it, and love the tempo, and I threw that one in because if we were going to more or less be exempt from the direct references, if we were gonna dig into a cover of a reference, then it would have to be Eddie Cochran for me. Just loved it.
And he was Live Hard, Die Hard. Live Hard, Die Young.
100%. Yeah.
He cut out at 24.
Yeah. He got a head start on the 27 Club by 36 months.
Oh, okay. And I don't know how I stumbled upon Orville Peck, but I found him about 6 months ago. Have you ever heard of him?
To be fair, I I had to look that one up, but because I was fascinated by the name. I was expecting a jug band, but got so much more when you pulled that rabbit out of the hat. Loved it.
Well, he did this tune. Spotify had a challenge for a cover, like a cover challenge.
Mm-hmm.
So he answered the bell for that, and he did this with pride in mind. And so,
Great.
so he is a gay country singer who has a Lone Ranger mask with the frills coming down, so no one's ever seen his face.
Ooh.
And the thing is, but the internet refuses to let anything just go. So they've analyzed him, and he forgot to cover up his tattoos. So they're pretty sure he is the drummer for a punk band.
Oh, okay.
Drummer for a punk band. He's from South Africa, lived in England for a while, lives in Toronto now, and he is the gay voice of the country scene.
Very cool.
And that song, it's almost like it's almost evangelical. It's like at times his voice is just like, it's a preacher voice. I I have played that a lot in the last 6 months. I love the song, and Small Town Boy. It is quite the gay anthem for sure. Like it's
Oh, absolutely.
so I don't know. I loved it, and I know that they like, Bronski Beat was definitely 80s, and they mentioned they like cover tunes. So there you go. Not what you probably ordered up, Taylor Boys.
No, but this is all about curveballs, I think.
Absolutely. What do you want to do?
I went right down the line with a bit of a gimme. They mentioned their high school experience and going in slightly different directions, and the jam came across. And from the album The Gift, I went with Happy Together, which is a bit of a rocker. It's a fantastic song. Of course, it tells a cool story too, but more importantly, it is pure 80s. And I couldn't let that one go. I mean, the Jam is easily my favorite band of all time, so it was easy for me to go to that reference. But more specifically for Mike and John, Happy Together is not only a great tune, but I did cross-reference it to their twindom for Happy Together.
Right on.
That's where I went.
And okay, so my next one's the Charlatans. And the only one I know, and it just sounds 80s. Like
Charlatans.
there's something about exactly, Charlton's UK, not to be confused with the lawsuit.
Yeah. No, great song, great choice.
And when I was looking at their background, because I just heard them, but I don't follow them and never really did follow them, but they were always on being played at places where you're going to dance and have fun. And the Manchester baggy sound is what they were referred to. It is indie dance techno funk. That was the sound that they represented. So trivia.
Not to get too specific.
No, but there you go. The Charlatans UK had that sound. So where are you going, Al Stewart?
I did go to Al Stewart. They mentioned their Sister's Choices as big influences, and Time Passages certainly is one I had to grab on that one. Al Stewart really has two songs, and I went with the one that I like more than another, but it is a good song, and I think I knew where Mike and John were going with that in terms of listening to the sisters' music, the older sisters' music, and using that as a springboard to discovering their own. But you could see the soft touch of Al Stewart and how that sort of fit the mold at the time. It was a shallow end in to the rest of the music that they like. So, and it's a good song. It's a great song.
Well, he might beg to differ with you. I did research on this song.
Well,
he was in an elevator years after this song, and he starts hearing this song come on in the elevator, and he said to the guy who interviewed him, he said, "I got to admit, I listened to the opening of the song. I said, what kind of shit song is this? And then I heard my voice."
He's not the first musician to hear this song and have a cringeworthy moment. I'm sure. I'm sure.
So I was thinking about the Boys and their drum kit.
Oh.
And thinking about, John said that he played Salisbury Hill endlessly. So, I was thinking, Erasure covered it years after they were popular. They did an album of cover songs, and they did this, and I just thought it's pretty appropriate to either you like this cover song or you don't, which is kind of like, the parents upstairs who keep hearing Salisbury Hill being botched over and over and over again. And so I wasn't going to give them the good Peter Gabriel version. I was definitely going to give them the cover where they may or may not like this at all.
And thinking back to the conversation, it's not the most challenging drum piece. It- which makes it even
and the
better.
and the drums still got tossed out, and it wasn't that hard.
I immediately had to put the song on. Went, if I had to hear that drum beat from downstairs going nonstop for about 4 weeks, there might not be twins. There'd be only one.
I honestly, you have successfully had a child who's very talented musically. I don't know if I could put up with the drum kit in the basement. I really, really do not.
No, I
God
guess
bless the Taylor parents.
the electronic drum kits make it easy on parents now because the kid can just have headphones on and beat the shit out of drums and no one's the wiser, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But back in the analog drum days, I don't know how much insulation you can do with grandma's old quilts, but I don't think there's much that you can stop from hearing every bang and crash through a house. So my hat goes off to the parents, Taylor, for putting up with that.
I honestly can't imagine it. Okay, you go.
because I think I have a pretty good grip on the, although I am older, on the Lawrence Park music scene in the 80s. I went with The Cure, Just Like Heaven, because I could see that there was definitely two solitudes in the music scene, certainly in that part of Toronto at the time, and The Cure just represented everything that was anti-anthem rock to my mind at the time, and Just Like Heaven seems like it would fit right in that slot at the time, in the neighborhood with the boys. And although I don't think there was any specific mention of Robert and the Cure, I just think that one, for me, it just fit, and it's a great tune.
It's a great tune. He actually says it's the best thing he's ever written.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, and that line, show me that trick you do, that one that'll make me scream.
Yeah.
That thing that'll make me scream. It's like, come on, you hear that? And he wrote that for his girl. And I love when they recorded that album. It was just a classic movie scene where their studio, you got the soundboard, you got all the girlfriends on the couch in the background. When they played a song, the girls would rate it 1 out of 10. And that's how they judged their music. And they just sat there drinking, smoking ciggies, just going,
sure.
I just think that's a great visual. And he was in love with that girl, and they happily ever after, so, but he wrote it for her, wrote best song ever. And good. I don't know. It really is. When I think of the 80s, you definitely think of The Cure.
Oh, for sure. And he was a child magician.
Did not know that.
He was. Show me that trick you do has more than one meaning. It'd be having adolescent sparkly shirt meaning, and then flopping around on the couch meaning. So there you go.
Oh, okay. Well, that leads into
that Robert Smith.
I'm gonna go out of order because I was gonna close with what was that? My last one was Rolling. No. Oh, you had the Rolling Stones. Did you, or did I?
I did not. That was you.
Okay. All right. Waiting on a Friend. So Waiting on a Friend, I love that story of like, no one's really sure if waiting on a friend is waiting on a girlfriend, just hanging out outside, waiting for a girl to come along, or if it was waiting for a heroin drop.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point.
Once the magic, we'll never really know, because that was the heroin days, and just hanging outside waiting on a friend. So anyways, that's my latest selection, and it could have went anywhere with the Rolling Stones, but and I kind of want to do a live one because they have lots of live recordings. Everyone I listened to, it sounded shite. So
oh, really?
I couldn't find any that I really liked, that I liked his voice. So there you go.
Oh.
Your go.
You and I both picked the Smithereens for completely different songs, maybe for different reasons. But I went with Only a Memory, which is just such a fucking great song. And a terrific band, as I mentioned to you earlier in the text about their live performance, and getting them twice in Ottawa. It was just fantastic. But
they were Jersey boys, right?
They're New Jersey boys. Yeah.
So that's what I was thinking, because they mentioned Bruce Springsteen, and I'm like, I could go for the obvious, or I could go for, these guys that I don't think were very well known. I was blown away that you booked them twice. So
That was pretty funny.
who was the venue?
Pick that one. Porter Hall in first one was Porter Hall at Carleton, which was home to so many great shows in the early 80s. I mean, it was just program director for the school was a guy named Pete Wheatley, and he was bringing in just just the incredible variety of bands that he had the foresight to bring in early on the heels of their careers was just unbelievable. He was a great guy to work with and to load in and out speakers and amps and hump crap around for him in the day, and great experience. But the good thing about being a roadie is you see the acts, you hang around, you get to maybe even spend some time with them, and it was great fun, just superb. But a show like no other. I just thought it was fantastic. So I'm always going to give a shout out to the Smithereens.
Well, right on. Yeah, I was surprised because, like I said to you last night in that text, and like I thought I was like, oh, Chris is going to be so impressed with my pick.
That was funny because I had that on the list, and then you nailed that one. So too good.
Hey, I'm actually gonna so many of these what I thought were just straight up pop bands actually have their roots in punk, which is mind blowing to me. And I knew it from the Stranglers, but when I got attracted to the Stranglers, I think I told you, it was second or third year university, across the street, a girl I was interested, Tamsin, she loved the Stranglers. So I borrowed her cassette tape and I fell in love with them. But that was like, I was in love with their more poppy stuff with Golden Brown and Always the Sun. And then of course, Skin Deep. And then, and then actually it's funny, later in life, I've learned to appreciate punk more than I did. Like most people like it when they're younger. I've actually went heavier as I've grown older. And and I know that was during the windsurfing days, as I lived with a guy who really liked punk, and a lot of the music was going in the house was punk. And I found out it wasn't so bad, and I actually got into it. And then, but what's funny about the Stranglers is that Brian Duffy, known as Jet Black, started the band in his 30s. He had money. He had money because he had a fleet of ice cream vans.
Come on.
He was the ice cream mogul, and he sold that off, opened I guess what they call an off sales, like a pub. And then he always wanted to be in a punk band, so started a punk band, and he had this pub, so they played there and cut their teeth there after he was the ice cream man for 30 until he was mid 30s.
That's some quality digging on that
one. So there you go. There's Stranglers with a little bit of a sweet twist at the end. So where are you going now?
I jumped around a little bit, but Neil Young was mentioned, of course, as he probably would be, and of course I had to go down the cover road, and I've always liked Jason Isbell's cover of Like a Hurricane, which I thought was damn cool.
Which he kicked up a lot, like he upped the pace.
He did. That was a throwdown, and I realized that in most Canadian kids' discography, there's going to be a Neil Young reference, because you're going to be in someone's rec room, you're going to be at someone's cottage, or maybe someone's going to warble a Neil song from a campfire. But because it's always going to be a cornerstone, I don't think it necessarily has to be the real article, especially when so much of his so many of his titles have been covered so well. And the Jason Isbell just floored me. I just loved it, so I thought it deserved to be in there.
And thanks for the introduction. I'd never heard of Jason Isbell, and I listened to that, and now I'm a fan. Like that, I way prefer that. I'm sorry. I'm okay with Neil Young because I'm a good Canadian and I go to cottages and listen to it, but I don't at home. I don't put it on. And
you don't like discordant guitar solos that go on endlessly?
I just have a guitar on display, but I don't play it. So So no, I don't. But my business partner saw him at Coachella 2-3 years ago, and of all of those acts, like there's really big acts there. Obviously, he stole the show.
Great.
Hardly talked to the audience. Just came on and did an amazing set that went on for quite some time, and they said it was just perfect. Like obviously, he probably spoke a little bit, but he wasn't super chummy with the audience. He was a little crusty Neil Young, but they said it was the best thing they saw all weekends, which
Wow.
surprised me. Yeah, because I definitely would have been there for Beyonce, you know, obviously.
Wow.
And
Who
hoping
would
Orville
want to
Peck,
be there for Beyonce?
hoping my boy Orville Peck opens up, you know. So
Now that would make a full evening.
that would make a full evening for me. My God. And my next pick is just a selfish pick because it
Okay.
was the 80s. And for some reason, I had this thing for David and David, Welcome to the Boomtown. And,
Yeah.
you know, I love the whole album, and they didn't do a thing after. Like they did the one album, and I think that was it. They might have done another one, but I think it was just a one-off. And it got good reviews. It wasn't the happiest music. It was definitely about down and out and cheating, and
Mhm.
this one's, you know, a bit of a drug addiction or drug or alcohol addiction, but I loved it. You know, so I think that the only thing they did together after that, they helped Sheryl Crow start her career. They wrote a lot of her first album with her.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, and then they went on their merry ways, separate ways. But I played it a lot in university, so in the 80s, this is definitely on my mixes. And Welcome to the Boomtown just has a good, it's pretty distinctive a guitar sound right off the start. And I don't know, it's a personal choice. So the John Taylors are getting my personal choices.
Nice.
You're welcome. Yeah.
Well, I threw in this case Mike a bone by picking U2's New Year's Day. Now, I need to preface this by saying that Bono is a preachy fuck, and for that reason, I have very little time for U2. Very little time. When when you get told to make sure that you hallmark a good percentage of your income for charity and then hide all of yours in Switzerland, I take great umbrage to that. And I'm just, the whole Bono act just wore pretty thin with me early on. So pretty much anything past Unforgettable Fire for me is unforgettable. So I went to the early bank and chucked in New Year's Day. Still a good song.
In spite of everything, it's still a good song.
Preachy fuck. And I'm not that crazy about the Edge's guitar work. I mean, his talent notwithstanding, I'm just the layer upon layer upon layer doesn't do it for me the way that a cleaner, rougher sound does. So I'm not a huge, you know, I wouldn't line up in the rain to see U2. Just let me tell you that. But it is New Year's Day when it came out. Great song, great record at the time, and I had to throw Mike a U2 bone because he is a big fan. So I'll give him that.
He is. Did you see that? Was it a Netflix documentary? This Might Get Loud. The
Oh yeah,
Jack White. Okay, well, you know they show of like Jack White, Jimmy Page, I think was Jimmy Page was, yeah, and just how knowledgeable and how talented they are. And then you go to Bono's little pieces, like, so I got this machine. I just go like this, and I sit back for 5 minutes, and it does its thing. And I do remember they were on the stage. And was it 4 of them or 3? But I remember Bono's over here, the Edge is over here, and these guys are supposed to play something together. And at about a minute in, you could see Jack White kind of go like this, and just him and Jimmy Page just kind of get at it because like, this guy's got nothing to give us. It was fucking hilarious. So I think it was supposed to be a celebration of his talents with all the effects, but anyone could see that's like, sure, he's got talent, but
sure,
these guys are bringing it. Jesus,
well, I mean, an undeniable talent, but I love the scene where they show the Thames River in the background, and he has a giant room full of effects. And Jack White takes a Coke bottle and and a plank of wood, a guitar string, and an old pickup, and hammers it all together and starts wailing on it. And it sounds 100 times better than any of the shit that The Edge comes out with. So that was, and of course, to be fair to the king, to Jimmy Page, he just plugs straight into a tube amp and just let her rip. So I think that film didn't cast The Edge in the best light. I'm sure that everyone who fawns over and just loved it and couldn't get enough.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
But it
Really.
showed the from a purist point of view who the winners in that little scrap was.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I put on a band here that I know that you have zero time for. Promises, Promises by Naked Eyes. Because of the fact, because I don't know anything about them, I'm just like, this was definitely an 80s tune. I remember listening to it, but
Sure.
here's the thing about them: they never ever played live because they couldn't recreate their studio sound on stage. So
Again, they're not the only ones. Promises is sort of like shitty wallpaper from that era. You're going to come across it by accident once in a while, and you're going to peel off a layer or something, and fuck, right behind it is Promises. It is dreadful, but I think there's a quality in its awfulness, and I think that there's a lot of bands and a lot of songs like that have this enduring quality, and the shit still stinks after all this time. It's almost unforgivable, but it's reasonable that it exists, because it needs to be there for history to know what horrible taste people had in the 80s. You can't bury it. The truth needs to be out there. We have to be ashamed.
did we just lose two friends here? We're making a tape for the Taylors, and we're just going, here's another shit tune. You guys are amazing, but
What's
I can't stand
the song we can come up with to put on a tape for them?
your turn.
Well, I put in Icicle Works.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, again, a band that didn't have a lot of endurance in terms of large popularity, but I don't think anybody wouldn't give a left nut to have the popularity they had for such a short time, which is fine. But I threw in Birds Fly. I mean, name another Icicle Works song. I don't think anybody can, but I think that's a song that, again, it frames the time that the Taylors are really speaking of. And if you were to put a soundtrack to that era, I don't think it would be complete without that song. And for that reason, that's why it ended up on my list. I'm unapologetic about that turd.
They came from Liverpool.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
So they deserved, yeah.
They're the first popular band to come from Liverpool.
Absolutely. They're keeping the tradition alive, keeping the legacy alive of Liverpool. Well done.
What do you got?
I got Perfect Way by Scritti Politti, another stellar group. But they started out once again, like about 4 of the bands that I chose, as a punk band, which is mind blowing to me. But here's the neat little thing about them is that Miles Davis loved the song. Miles Davis had to do he did one of those CDs where it's like 1980 to 1990, and his record company said you have to put one cover on. It has to be one thing that people from outside your genre are going to actually maybe say, oh, well, let's listen to Miles Davis, because he loved the song and he put the song on there.
Wow.
I know. Who would have thunk that Miles Davis would have had a thing for Scritti Politti? But he did. And so it makes this mixtape for the Taylors even more valuable.
When John was saying that his second son was
Ben.
leading him down. Ben was taking him down a few musical roads and some stuff that he hadn't really had the time to appreciate. That's kind of a cool story. I mean, that's kind
Yeah.
of fun.
Mhm.
But curious that the artist that he mentioned that he didn't really have a connection to, and I think that speaks to when they said that music wasn't a big thing growing up in their house, but had it been, those were exactly who I'm imagine that he would have heard in his house. I mean, he would have heard all of those ones that he spoke about. But I went with Aretha Franklin, Think, which is for a number of reasons. I mean, the absolute queen, genius, brilliant song. But I do know that the boys both like the movie Blues Brothers, and of course it makes a guest appearance there too. There you go. There she is.
Love this album.
Yeah.
This is a good live album.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, exactly. And that's I think of that scene. That's a good scene from the Blues Brothers. And yeah, I've watched that film with Mike Taylor a couple of times. I think it's great. I think, and what was it, Bradley Cooper, Lady Gaga, A Star Is Born? They did
Yes.
the remake of that, right? I'm almost positive, and I should have looked it up, but in that scene where he gets in a bar fight after he sees her sing in her bar, he goes and checks her out,
Mhm.
and he's just on a bit of a bender, and then they end up leaving, and he's got she cracks someone's head open with her fist
In the drag bar?
in the drag bar, yeah. And they go to the grocery store to buy some frozen peas.
Right.
Aretha Franklin is the cashier.
No, I didn't even notice that, I don't think.
Yeah, well, I saw that and I thought I recognized the voice. And she had like no hair because it was near the end in the cancer days. And I'm pretty damn sure that's her. So I should have done some research. But when I think of Aretha Franklin recently, that's something that comes to mind. So next time I'll do some more research and have a better story. I don't know. Did they mention Yes? I think they did mention Yes.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. So Leave It. And I quite enjoyed the album Leave It that this album was off of. I like this song a lot. Yeah, I hated the video. And this is right, I think, when the band started to turn, because they wanted to be more prog rock, and then they got super popular, and that's all they heard. It's just make another hit single, make another hit single.
Right.
And I think this is the album where it was a good album, but I think things fell apart after this. Like things went downhill because half the band wasn't happy with what they're doing, playing these songs that they kind of half liked. And but I do like, I like the serendipity of groups when you find out how things happen. And it was they were sitting in a bar before they were a band, and they just played a few gigs, and they're like, we need a name. And one of the guys said, let's call it Life. And one of the other guys, I think it was John Anderson, because he didn't come up with the final name, he said, how about World? And the third guy said, Yes. And that was it. And it reminds me, just that serendipity. Well, it reminds me of two things, because Mike Taylor talked about serendipity of going to see Andrew Cash with Doug Perry at the no drinks allowed venue, and having a great ad hoc night. But I also remember something the opposite of that, of many drinks involved. It was, I'm not even sure if I was there, but I do remember the story that it was like another Wednesday night, and drinking games were sometimes a big deal on any night when you wanted to get loaded before you went to whatever, the Morrissey or something. You want to get a few quick drinks in and get a quick buzz before you didn't spend too much money at the pub. And they'd run out of drinking game ideas. So they came with, you drink. No, you drink. And that's it. They sat in a circle and just pointed at each other. There was no game to it at all.
That'll get the job done.
So the simplicity just works sometimes. So I don't know. That's when I read that story, I just thought about drinking games and how it just boils down to, okay, why don't we just all drink?
My hat goes off to their efficiency.
Absolutely. No, not drawn out, no focus groups.
the unavoidable fact of knowing Mike and John is that Kiss is going to come into play at some point in any given evening.
At
There's
many
no
points in any
denying,
given evening.
there's no avoiding. It's
No.
it's going to happen. There'll
Brace
be a
yourself. Yeah.
So there was no way in hell I was going to give him a straight up Kiss song. I just wasn't.
Yeah.
I wasn't going to give them the handful of glitter and confetti that they're after. So it was obviously going to be a cover. And
Do you think it's John's secret wish when he pops on this video? Does he actually think that, oh, maybe they put on makeup for me? Maybe they did it right.
I think he assumes that people do that. Just everyday people do it, like that they're the spaceman or the devil child or whatever the characters are supposed to be. Now that you mention that, I think I've kind of let him down that I didn't play on the black and white paint.
We should have had some kind of t-shirt or platform shoes at least, you know. As you look around, you're like, what can I get? What Kiss stuff do I have lying around?
The answer to your question, what Kiss stuff do I have lying around? I can tell you there's nothing in the tickle trunk currently that that would help me out there. But now that you've raised that specter, now it's all about disappointing. God.
Well, the Taylortons they're already upset with their selection, so how much further can we disappoint? So you mentioned,
well, you and
I
Volley
couldn't find this.
Yeah,
What's
so
that?
I pitched from the record, the cover record called "Kiss My Ass." I went with Lenny Kravitz's cover of "Deuce," which is fantastic. I mean, it really was good.
Yeah, and I watched it on YouTube. It was amazing.
Song,
yeah,
and for a variety of reasons, I don't think that record is commercially available. But you led me down a different path, and you suggested the Dee Snider cover. Was that the one you?
Oh, I just said. Well, you actually chose it, but I just said, okay. God, there's so much here. There's so much to choose, and I was so bummed. I'm good at finding things, but having on that. Sorry to interrupt, but your Lenny Kravitz selection, Stevie Wonder is singing backup in that on the Kiss tribute song. You got Lenny killing it, and Stevie's in the background singing backup. That's why I spent an hour trying to find it. I'm like, wow, I just couldn't find it. So you went with Dee Snider.
I think just as a second choice, Dee Snider's version of Detroit Rock City. I think.
Yep.
Yes, that's what it is. It's pretty damn fine too.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to get the real thing, but they're going to get it. They're going to get it close, and that rips. It's a goodie. Dee Snider, who thought it would be an excellent idea at the peak of his career with Twisted Sister to file his teeth into a point.
What you do?
Poor Dee.
Poor Dee. He had it all.
He did.
Threw it away. He really did have it all for a year.
Yeah, for 7 to 8 months, he had it all. So, but from what I gather, he's a very entertaining character, and he's had the dental work done, so it's all good with Dee.
He's back in the game. So I think we talked Beatles and that they have an appreciation for Beatles. I think they like him. It's not first and foremost, but we talked about how I think it was JT that talked about George Harrison, and you guys went on and talked about how he was, the man, and that's why I chose George Harrison when we was Fab, and it's one of my favorite George Harrison songs in a big way, and it's talking about the good times of the Beatles, looking back and rose-colored glasses, and I think somewhat rose-colored glasses, but I think he had time to kind of process it. But what I do love about this song is once again serendipity of how it came together. Kim and his writing partner at the time, or a guy in the band, flew to, I think it was Australia, New Zealand, I think it was Australia, to see the Grand Prix. And so just picture yourself at a dinner party, George Harrison's there, which is lucky enough. That's pretty cool. Hopefully you're gonna have a good conversation at one point, and hopefully you smoke a joint and have a really good conversation. But then halfway through dinner, there's a grand piano over there. Him and his writing partner wander over the grand piano. They were thinking about the song. They come up with the melody. They come up with the verse, and pretty fucking good dinner party song in the middle of a dinner party, And what do? You're at the dinner party. You just know this dinner party. There's maybe like 16 people there. There's lots of wine flowing. There's boisterous people, and there's one guy who knows it all. There's got to be one guy who's coming over the piano with a few ideas for them.
Oh,
just imagine.
Guaranteed. Yeah, move over, would you? Just move over.
So, where you want to go?
Am I out? I think I'm done.
You had psychedelic. You had a few. You had Elton John, Tiny Dancer.
Sure. Yeah,
You had psychedelic,
psychedelic Furs. Pretty in Pink. I've always liked the Furs. I like Richard Butler. Again, another band that played in our little venue in Ottawa, and thought the world of them. Not only was it a great band, great guys. The song, of course, is so tied to the Molly Ringwald vehicle, which is fine, I guess. It's not a movie that speaks to me. I was obviously too old to have that sort of teenage angst, but I think it fits the boys over quite nicely, and it's got that little high school connection thing going on where they were at the time, and it's a cool song. If you separate yourself from the film, that's why I thought it should be there. But I like the song. I like the songs. I don't know the movie.
Well, I like the song too, but even they are like, he used the song for the movie because it's about her being a slut, right? And they actually, the rumor has it that Molly really liked it, so she presented John Hughes, said, "Oh, I really like this song. Can we work it into the film?" And he claims he wrote a lot of the film with the song in mind.
Okay.
And psychedelic fears are like, did you really get the song? It's like she's a dirty little slut, and we're making fun of her. Like,
can we?
So they always cringe a little bit. I'm actually out of tunes, but the last one I think we missed is yours with Elton John, Tiny Dancer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you have to throw some Elton John in there. I'm unapologetic in my support of Elton John, and the reference of that song, of course, is more speaking to its use in cinema, and it's the song. I think it ties in well with the boys. I think that they both mentioned at some point Elton John. Of course, there's too many songs that you could pick, but I went that one for that one just to temper the beats per minute of some of the other ones that I picked, just to bring it down a little bit. I think that's why I did it, but it's a good song too.
Well, it's a good song too, but
yeah.
Elton John actually never played it live. Like, he played it live early on, didn't go over at all. Crowd did not respond to it, and then as soon as
nobody knew about it until Almost Famous came out.
Yeah, absolutely. And he said, I gotta thank Cameron Crowe, because no one liked this song, and as soon as I play it now, it's the biggest sing-along of all time. And I wonder, I actually did like 2 minutes of research before we did this, which obviously is not enough. But my last little thing that I was Googling, I'm like, does Elton John know that everyone sings Tony Danza? And I couldn't find the answer for that.
He must.
Absolutely, he must.
And I think that Reginald Dwight has a good enough sense of humor that he would say, fuck it, that's pretty funny.
Oh, absolutely. I think so, for sure. Yeah.
And he is at the fuck it stage of his career anyway. I mean, he makes all the decisions. No one does it for him. If he wants to do it, he does it. The bitch is back. He's fucking awesome.
And I saw that was the last concert I saw. It was Elton John. Super serendipitous in terms of at the restaurant. He played he played on Saturday night and then Monday night here. So he took a rest day, and or maybe a Saturday, Sunday, and then Tuesday or something like that. But
alone? Just him doing his thing, and
yeah, just him doing his thing. There's no warm up act, and it was just him on the stage. Oh, of course, with all of the backing band, which when you read about the backing band, most of those guys are 7 years old. They've been his backing band for a long time.
Oh God, yeah. I mean,
so it was
I can't remember if it's still doing it, but Davy Johnstone played guitar for him for many years, and Nigel was the drummer. And I mean, they had a pretty tight band for a long time.
Yeah. So those guys came to Vancouver, and I have a guy who comes in the restaurant who goes to see everything, and he loves the Rolling Stones, and he claims to be really good friends with the Rolling Stones, and he just might be because he gets flown into a lot of places, and and he has shown me he has been backstage because he's shown me the cases that the guitars are in for Keith Richards. Like he's somehow in there,
and none of them have low strings.
and Andy's like our age, but in any event, he came to the restaurant on the Sunday night on the rest day, and I said, how was the show? He says, oh, I saw both nights. And I'm like, sure you did. And of course he's like front row, like he just gets every ticket, he's in everywhere. And I'm like, I think I may have missed an opportunity. He's like, oh, well, just go online, buy tickets. I'm like, really? He says, oh yeah, they just released more tickets. And he goes on his phone. And because the fact they hold until the day before the concert, they're holding many VIP tickets, and then if they don't get snapped up, then they go. And so I was at the side, essentially fourth row in the stands, perfect. And Reg was essentially 20 yards from me at all times.
Fantastic.
It was amazing. And every time after every set, and it was amazing because he was so chill that he talked about the songs for 4 or 5 minutes in between songs. There's his little rest time, but it was story time. It was really good. And Vancouver crowds are known for being sleepy and reserved. And it was just a big sing along. It was one of the better times. And I think even he was pleasantly surprised. There's lots of times he kind of looked up, was like, wow, you guys are doing good. So that was nice to see him, because who knows if we'll ever tour again. Like if COVID doesn't end soon, he's running out of touring time because he cut it short just before. I think he got quite sick on the road. So,
well, for sure, for a bunch of other reasons, he's been doing it for a long time. He's got a great marriage. He's got 2 kids. I think he's got 2. Yeah. And he's got a great life. So why would you want to, he's left a great legacy of live music.
Yeah.
And writing and performing. So, I don't think anybody would hold it against him if he just said, I'm fucking done. This has been a long life of doing this.
But I think he tried that. And I think David said, can you get the fuck out of the house? It's not part of his DNA, right? So I think there's a bit of that.
Well, and Furnish is Canadian, so maybe Tours of Canada can still be part of the game, because he's got tons of friends here. He was in the advertising world. He's got lots of pals certainly in Toronto, I'm sure. And so maybe Toronto's going to get all the shows. Who knows? But anyway,
great. You get that new Massey Hall, and he'll be the house band. I
have to look at the ticket. I think my first Elton John show was in 1980. I do have the stub. I kept all my stubs. I'll take a picture and send it to you. I'm sure it was, but that was the full-on Nigel Olsson, Davy Johnstone. I think Caleb Kay was playing bass, and it was in his absolute. I mean, 80 was his, late 70s, very early 80s wheelhouse for his eccentricities and for his live show. It was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah.
It was good time. I think that we've done the Taylor brothers a great service by including Reginald Dwight in the list.
Well, we've done them a service. Let's see what they think.
Now you got me all wound up, because we've done nothing for them to serve their Kiss fantasy.
This is the power of video. We can add on to this. So send me some pictures and I'll just intersperse them.
Okay. We could have done a puppet show. There could have been something.
at least like coffee mugs or something like that. Yeah. So yeah, we might have to have the Taylor tins back on so we can do them right. But
And
this
you
is pretty much fun.
you can trim the wheat from the chaff here a little bit too, because I'm sure that there's going to be some expendable ones on my end. So feel free, have at it, whittle it down to what you see best. But this is great fun to follow up with the Taylors and see what they think of our bizarre masala of songs that bear virtually no resemblance to the conversation we had with them.
We didn't forget Ginny. We put on a few songs for her, the older
did.
sister.
We did.
She'll be happy.
She's well represented.
All right, my friend. We'll see you next week.
Good night, Brad.